You can be competent, thoughtful, even deeply perceptive, and still feel like the least intelligent person in the room. And when that feeling settles in, it doesn't just bruise your confidence. It begins to quietly reshape your identity. There is a particular tension that happens when you enter a conversation and everyone else seems faster, quicker with facts, more articulate, more certain. Their ideas flow without visible strain, while yours feel delayed, fragmented, slightly behind. You begin tracking yourself in real time. You measure your responses. You hesitate before speaking. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, you start shrinking. The pain isn't just about intelligence. It's about belonging. Because in many environments, workplaces, universities, high-achieving friend groups, intelligence is currency. It signals value. It signals status. It signals whether you deserve to be there. So when you perceive yourself as cognitively inferior, it doesn't feel like a neutral observation. It feels like exposure. And if this happens repeatedly, something deeper forms. Chronic comparison becomes a lens through which you see yourself. Not, I misunderstood this concept, but I am the slow one. Not, I need more time, but I don't measure up. This is where identity erosion begins. The core conflict isn't simply intelligence versus ability. It's competence versus belonging. You want to contribute. You want to be respected. But when you perceive yourself as the least intelligent person in the room, you start managing impressions instead of engaging ideas. Your nervous system shifts from curiosity to self-protection. You stop asking questions because you don't want to confirm your fears. You over-prepare before speaking. You replay conversations afterward, analyzing what you should have said. You compare how effortlessly others seem to think. Over time, comparison stops being a moment and becomes a mindset. To understand what this does to you, we need to look at the psychological mechanisms beneath it. The first is social comparison. Human beings don't evaluate themselves in isolation. We calibrate our worth relative to others. When you consistently place yourself at the bottom of the cognitive hierarchy, your brain interprets it as status threat. Status threat activates the same stress responses as physical danger. Your body tightens. Your thoughts narrow. Creativity drops. Working memory declines. Ironically, feeling less intelligent makes you perform worse cognitively. So the fear becomes self-confirming. But this isn't proof of low intelligence. It's proof of cognitive load. When part of your mind is occupied with self-monitoring, how am I sounding? Did that make sense? Are they judging me? You have fewer mental resources available for thinking clearly. You're not just solving the problem in front of you, you're solving yourself. The second mechanism is labeling. Once you internally adopt the identity of the least intelligent one, your brain starts filtering evidence accordingly. You remember moments when you stumbled. You discount moments when you were insightful. You interpret neutral feedback as confirmation of inadequacy. This is not weakness. It's how identity stabilizes. The mind prefers coherence over accuracy. If your identity becomes, I'm the slow one, you will unconsciously behave in ways that maintain that narrative. You speak less. You defer more. You avoid intellectual risk. You withdraw from debate. Others then perceive you as quieter or less assertive, reinforcing your belief. The role solidifies. The third mechanism is belonging versus competence tension. Humans have two powerful needs, to feel capable and to feel accepted. When you feel cognitively inferior, you may unconsciously sacrifice competence to preserve belonging. You laugh at jokes you don't fully understand. You agree quickly to avoid scrutiny. You position yourself as the supportive listener rather than the contributor. You trade intellectual presence for social safety, but this comes at a cost. Over time, self-silencing creates resentment. You feel unseen, underestimated, mischaracterized. Yet you also fear that speaking up will expose you. So you remain caught between invisibility and exposure. The fourth mechanism is rumination. If you are emotionally intense or prone to overthinking, perceived intellectual inferiority becomes fertile ground for repetitive thought loops. You replay meetings. You dissect phrasing. You analyze others' reactions. This rumination doesn't improve performance. It amplifies self-consciousness. And because you care deeply about understanding and being understood, each perceived misstep feels disproportionately significant. What makes this particularly painful is that intelligence is rarely singular. Cognitive ability is multidimensional. Analytical speed is one form. Verbal fluency is another. Emotional intelligence, pattern recognition, long-term synthesis, these are also forms. But in specific rooms, only certain types are rewarded visibly. If the environment prizes rapid-fire debate, the reflective thinker feels inadequate. If it prizes abstract theory, the practical integrator feels behind. Context shapes comparison. Yet, when you internalize the comparison, you don't see context. You see deficiency. This pattern extends into relationships. If you believe you are intellectually inferior, you may unconsciously choose partners or friends who reinforce that hierarchy. You position them as the thinker and yourself as the supporter. You ask for reassurance, you defer decisions. Or, alternatively, you overcompensate, becoming defensive, argumentative, hypersensitive to correction. Small disagreements feel like intelligence tests. At work, this identity influences risk-taking. You may avoid applying for roles that require strategic thinking. You hesitate to propose ideas unless they are fully formed. You stay in execution roles even when you crave influence. Chronic comparison narrows your perceived range of possibility. And perhaps most damaging, it distorts self-esteem. You stop evaluating yourself holistically. You collapse your entire worth into cognitive ranking. If someone else is smarter, you feel smaller. But human value is not a leaderboard. Intelligence is not a single axis, and rooms are not objective measures of your mind. There is also an uncomfortable truth here. Sometimes you are in rooms where others have more expertise, more training, more experience. That does not make you inherently less intelligent. It means you are in proximity to growth. But if your identity interprets difference as inferiority, growth feels like humiliation. The nervous system cannot learn effectively under shame. This is why chronic comparison quietly erodes identity. It shifts you from learner to imposter, from participant to observer, from contributor to evaluator of self. The room becomes a mirror that only reflects your perceived deficits. But here is the deeper layer. The fear of being the least intelligent person in the room is often rooted in early experiences. Perhaps intelligence was praised in your family as the highest virtue. Perhaps mistakes were corrected harshly. Perhaps you were compared to siblings or peers. When intelligence becomes tied to love or approval, any threat to it feels existential. You are not just afraid of being wrong, you are afraid of being less worthy. Recognizing this changes the narrative. It reframes the anxiety not as proof of low intelligence, but as evidence of attachment to competence. You care. You want to contribute meaningfully. You want to be taken seriously. That desire is not weakness. The key is integration rather than hierarchy. Instead of asking, "Am I the smartest here?" a more psychologically stable question is, "What is my specific cognitive strength in this context?" Maybe you are slower but more thorough. Maybe you synthesize ideas others miss. Maybe you sense interpersonal dynamics that sharper analysts overlook. Intelligence is not just speed. It is also depth, connection, pattern, intuition. When you stop competing for a universal ranking and start identifying your cognitive niche, shame reduces. You move from global judgment to contextual awareness. It is also important to separate performance from identity. You can struggle with a concept without being globally unintelligent. You can need clarification without being inferior. Intelligence is not disproven by confusion. It is often refined through it. There is quiet strength in being the least knowledgeable person in a room and remaining open. It requires ego flexibility. It requires tolerance for temporary discomfort. Many people who appear intellectually dominant are deeply threatened by not knowing. They speak quickly to avoid uncertainty. You, in contrast, may feel the uncertainty more acutely, which can make you cautious, but also more precise. Chronic comparison distorts perception. It magnifies others' strengths and minimizes your own. It forgets that every room is selective. If you are consistently in environments where you feel intellectually stretched, that may reflect courage rather than deficiency. The goal is not to convince yourself you are secretly the smartest. That is another hierarchy trap. The goal is to loosen the identity grip around ranking, to allow yourself to exist in rooms without turning them into verdicts. When you feel that familiar tightening, when someone speaks fluently and your mind goes blank, notice what your brain is doing. It is scanning for threat. It is protecting your identity. Instead of fighting it, observe it. The thought, "I am the least intelligent here," is a hypothesis, not a fact. Treat it as data, not destiny. Being the least intelligent person in the room, real or perceived, does not define you. But how you interpret that perception shapes you profoundly.